Hello and welcome to our tutorial. So this is a very quick one. So this was the, well, yeah, we'll save that. This was the level we were working on with the boss, character, and our player, and a whole bunch of stuff. So it's not, it's not working, but that's not my job. My job is to show you bits, and you can do the rest. So this is an image. Just a sprite in the background, and I've added a canvas with a button and a piece of text. The text literally says game and the button says play, so it's fairly basic. And the purpose of this tutorial is we're going to look at WebGL export. So I just wanted to have two scenes. So I just need to get this to work. So I'm going to put my play game script onto my play button. And I'll just show you the script here. I won't bother opening it in MonDevelop because it's super simple. So it says here, using Unity Engine scene management. So we have to load that library in. And then I've made my own function here. It's called start game. And it loads level 1, which is the name of our level. So let's go to our button. And we have added this thing here. And on click, and what object are we looking for? Well, we're looking for ourselves. And then what function are we looking for? Well, our play game script has a well, where is it? So what am I looking for? I am looking for this word. Whoops, no, not that. I am looking for, it's turned it off. I'll close that. I am looking for, in my play game script, I'm looking for the function which is start game, and I cannot see it. Why is that? So it should be in here. It's probably because it's not public. That might be it. So let's go back to my play game. Let's do that again. And we may have identified an important and interesting lesson. Let's make it public. Public void start game. Save. Let's go back in here and go back here, and we still have our script, and we're going to go play game and start game. Yes, so we have to remember, because I didn't, to make the function public, or we can't access it publicly. So let's just see the button working. We press play. It's not very exciting. And we press play, and we play the game. Okay, all good. I'm not really interested in that. Just to set it up. So let's do a WebGL export. So we're gonna go File, Build Settings, and go to WebGL. If you don't have a WebGL, if you have something different here, you might have download. So you might have to click on a link and download this kind of component for Unity so that it can export. So before I do any of those settings, we're going to look here and see that level 1 is in our scene build, but our menu isn't. So I'm going to drag my menu in here. But this isn't right either, because if we build this as a game, it'll start on level 1. It won't start with our main menu. So we need to drag that up there. So just be aware, whatever way you're designing your game, whatever your main menu is, or maybe you open with a piece of video or with a splash screen, whatever the first thing we see is, it needs to go to the top. Okay, so that said, let's go to player settings, and it says settings for WebGL. Excuse me. So we don't have a huge amount of settings here, but let's have a look. So we've got our icon, so not applicable for this platform, so we don't have an app icon. This is important, so resolution. So whatever resolution you have been working on, so I'm in HD, so this should be HD, so this should be 1920 by 1080. Run in background is optional, and then I can change its template, but I'm going to run it like this, so that it runs in sort of a grey box. Splash screen image, well, it's going to run the Unity image first. Excuse me, we don't have the option of turning that off because this isn't the pro version of Unity. So we can add our own Unity, or sorry, our own logo in here if we have one. I don't, but if you wanted to add your own logo in, or each of you are in groups, so your group might have a logo, so you can add that in here. And it'll, as you see here, it says splash screen duration 2 seconds. So this is the sprite that comes up and then goes away. Okay, and then these are some of the settings for it, and other settings. These are the things we're most interested in. So most of these are not going to change. We're just going to have a quick look and see what is possible and what is not possible in terms of compression, etc. So a lot of these settings here are to do with compatibility with either hardware or other software. We'll be changing this when we're doing some VR work later, the API compatibility, but we'll leave it all as is now. And we'll have a look at so some of these down here. So optimization. So I can pre-bake collision meshes and turn that on. Preloaded assets. So if you have many levels and the levels are complex, we could use this. It's not going to be a huge advantage to us, and nor are we using any scripts that sort of preload scenes. And then we're not using logging. So then it says vertex compression. So we could go in and play with this, but the kind of default settings are fairly fairly sound in terms of they will do a good job without us having to muck around with them. But you can see there isn't any sliders here, or there's no you're not setting the quality of the sprites in terms of their compression as JPEGs, etc. So the only real way to control that is when you're creating them. So here, this is my background sprite here, and if I show an explorer and I look at the properties of that, so it's HD, or just slightly bigger than HD. It's a PNG file because I have an alpha channel in it, so we can see through to a background, and it's 1 meg. So if I want this to be smaller in my game, the only real way I can do that is to start going back into Photoshop or wherever I've made it and compress it there. You have this compression setting here, so normal quality. So if you were worried about the size of your game, you can also lower the quality of it here in the inspector, and then apply that to the sprite. So this is where we'll change the quality of individual sprites. If you had a really big sheet and you wanted to compress it because you were worried about it being too big, this is where you would go about doing that. And what we might try and do in class is test a few of these and see what they look like on the other side, if the compression changing from high quality to low quality, just how noticeable that is in a product. Okay, so where do we go after that? So once we've individually set our compression rate for our sprites, we select WebGL, we make sure our scenes are in the right order, and then we're just going to hit build. Now it's going to say where do you want to build it, so I'm just going to create a folder here, and I'm going to call this WebGL export, and I'm going to put it in there. And then the export of this is quite fairly slow, actually, in my experience, even though I've got very little in this game. So there's only one level, there aren't that many sprites, but it's not the fastest compiling. You get out to Android faster than you'll probably get out to WebGL. What you'll notice here in my taskbar is I don't have Firefox. So we did this in class last week, but when we try and run this WebGL, depending on the version of Chrome or Internet Explorer or Firefox that you have, it may or may not work. And what we found in the college was that it would only work in Firefox. So rather than me repeating that, because we've already done that in class, just to be aware that when you're testing this, you need to test it in the appropriate browser to make sure all your sprites are visible, all your sounds play, etc. So we're just going to wait for this to finish, and then we're going to look at it in Explorer, see how big it is as a finished product, and then we'll stop our tutorial. And then what we'll do in class then is we'll work on doing some questionnaires for testing, which you should all be about to undertake with your builds. So as you can see, it takes this is not the fastest machine in the world, but it's also not the slowest machine. So it's like I said, WebGL seems to be a slow export, but it doesn't take too long. It's about 3 or 4 minutes. So in the greater scheme of things, considering how much time you'll have put into your game, 3 or 4 minutes for an export is not a huge wait. I don't know if you can hear the fan on my processor. It's working hard. Okay, that was a torturous amount of time to wait. So this should finish up quickly now once it's past that bit. So we're just going to look at it in Explorer. We're going to see how big it is, and then when we're in class, what we'll do is we'll try and optimize some of the sprites in the game, and then we'll do 1 or 2 exports and compare file sizes, and we'll compare visual quality and see, is there a huge difference, and is it worth compressing all of your sprites, considering, you know, it's going to be played over an internet connection. So while some of us do have good connections, you're trying to make it so that anyone anywhere can play. So if you can make it smaller, it might run faster on, or load faster on slower connections. I should really time-lapse this, but I'm not going to, because I'm too lazy to edit this video after I've recorded it. So I'm just going to put it up as it is. So there'll be 4 minutes of watching something compile. The most riveting video ever. Hooray, we're done. Well, cancel that. So this is our folder here. So we'll look at the project in its entirety. So it's only 8 meg, which kind of makes sense. There's only a few sprites in it. So if we look at our template data, and so you can see there's very little here in terms of so most of the data is in this and in this. So when we compress, this is what will get smaller. Like I said, we'll try it a few different ways in class and see if we can, how much we can reduce that number. And then we'll have a look at what difference it'll make in terms of quality. Obviously we would normally load from here, so if I open that, and you can see it says that this browser doesn't support this WebGL plugin, but we'll run it in Firefox in the college and get it to work there. Okay, so that is enough for now.